Okay, I want to start off by giving all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah Kwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who teach the Bible in 100% truth, and shalom to the hopeful elect of the 12 tribes of Israel, starting with the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans in the land of North, Central, and South America, as well as the speckled bird, the Israelite foreigners living amongst the other nations who look like the other nations but will still see this word. Shalom to you. So today I'm looking at the events that are going on at the minute in the land of Israel with the small hats. You might have noticed this week in the news there's a lot of protesting going on over there. And I will leave a link in the description box of a video of a news article, a newsreel, if you like, and just going into the current political problems that are going on over there. And this video is surrounding that event and many other similar events that are going on and that will go on in similar fashion. Now, I've explained many times Iran are going ahead with building this nuclear ICBM, and that's a huge problem for the small hats in Israel as well as the people of America, because Iran's ultimate goal is to destroy America and the land of Israel and destroy those people in it. And that's their beliefs. If you were to, offer them the Iranian government one thing, if you were to speak to them today and say, we'll offer you one thing in the world, you can have anything you want, pick one particular thing. As a collective, as a government, they would all have to come to that conclusion that their ideal goal will be to destroy America and Israel with the small hats. So, we're fast approaching a point where Iran will have a nuclear ICBM built. And this is worrying the small hats, it's worrying the banking elites in America. So we're in a situation where, I've explained it, I've brought it out many times. The Israeli government have just been voted in. I believe that's Benjamin Netanyahu's second term in presidency, if that's what they call it. And this particular government has been labelled as the most left-wing government in history in terms of the small hats and the land of Israel. And their main message is that, we're going to go out and we're going to cause a problem with Iran to disrupt them from what they're doing. And now they've come across a situation where the people of the nation, as you can see on the screen, are protesting against the government. And this is all in the name of democracy. You see, you have the people of the nation who have been sold this lie of democracy. They've been given false identities and ideologies to follow, and they live in these abominable ways of life, in whichever type of form that they're doing it in. But they've all been sold a lie surrounding the phrase democracy. And this has come, spread from the Edomites in Babylon the Great, America. And this is something that the whole world has participated in and got involved in. And it's a way of manipulating and controlling masses of people. So this is the cup which the other nations are drunk of, from Babylon the Great, that spiritual fornication and that wickedness. And a lot of it centers around democracy. So a lot of these people in Israel are now standing up to their government saying, if you're supposed to be a democratic government, why is it that you're looking to be so military, so against your enemies in such an aggressive fashion, military wise? Why is it that you're now giving all this talk that you're going to go and do this with Iran, for example? And so the people are standing up for it, saying, we're a democratic system. You should be going over there and speaking to them. You shouldn't be classed as the aggressor. Yet, you've got the government, Benjamin Netanyahu and the boys, and they're trying to explain to the people that, we've got no choice but to do this. But obviously the people don't see that. And this is an issue that's going on at the minute. Now, this is all leading up to the day of the Lord. And, one thing about the destruction that's going to take place is one particular fact is the fact that America and the land of Israel will be totally destroyed and set on fire and burnt. And this is because, the obviously the land of Israel will have to be burnt and cleansed before the children of Israel move back in and the land is rebuilt back up. But the land of America will be burnt and offered up as a sacrifice. So, once the destruction takes place in World War III, Babylon the Great, which is America, will be turned into a desert. This will be left as a memorial to future generations as to not to do wickedness, and this is the result of it. Just like we can witness today, Sodom and Gomorrah left as a memorial as to not to do a certain type of wickedness, otherwise it can end in that particular way. And so America is that sacrifice as described in the scriptures. And this is something that we've mentioned before, when we go into the destruction of World War III in America. At the minute you have the prophets on Babylon the Great, on America, in that land, speaking this prophecy, speaking the destruction of Babylon the Great into existence, according to the Holy Spirit, according to Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai. So you have the prophets, the priests on the altar, which is America, and pretty much giving the service before the sacrifice takes place. Now, when you go to Zephaniah chapter 1 and verse 6 is, and them that are turned back from the Lord, and those that have not sought the Lord, nor inquired for him, hold thy peace at the presence of the Lord God, the Most High, Yahweh. For the day of the Lord is at hand. For the Lord hath prepared a sacrifice, he hath bid his guests. And it shall come to pass in the day of the Lord's sacrifice, that I will punish the princes and the king's children, and all such as are clothed with strange apparel. In the same day also I will punish all those that leap on the threshold, which fill their masters' houses with violence and deceit. Before I move on, Zephaniah 1 and 9, when it says, in the same day also I will punish all those that leap on the threshold, which fill their masters' houses with violence and deceit. Zephaniah is speaking of the day of the Lord, as we can see in verse 7. For the day of the Lord is at hand. So that's what Zephaniah is speaking of. And, when it comes to who the Lord is going to judge, he's using the example here in verse 9, in the same day will also punish those that leap on the threshold, which fill their masters' houses with violence and deceit. And that's referring to the idolization at the time of Zephaniah. It was the idolization of Ashdod. And one of the superstitions surrounding that worship was that, if you were to enter into the temple or the house of Ashdod, you were to leap over the threshold of the door. One of the superstitions based around that false worship, idolization. And so, Zephaniah is talking about the day of the Lord, and he's talking about the people that are going to get judged, and he's using examples of people around him. And so he used these particular people here with false idolization and superstitions. And it's pretty much the same thing today. We're out here, we're warning you of the day of the Lord, and we're telling you who he's going to judge. And some of it is based around people who have false worship and idolization, and then go on to have these superstitions. Again, we're talking about the day of the Lord. So whether you're speaking the word of the Most High in the time of Zephaniah, or whether you're speaking the word now, you're pretty much doing the same thing. You're speaking of the day of the Lord, which is very, very close now, and you're speaking of the people that are going to get judged within that time. And we're using examples of philosophies and ways of life, and using those as examples to say, look, people who follow these types of lives are the people that will be judged. And so, just like there were people using superstitious beliefs in the day of Zephaniah. There's people doing that today. So I would use a different example to what he would use. And for example, today you have people, when I was growing up, people used to say, oh, if you step on 2 drains, it's good luck. If you step on 3 drains, it's bad luck, or some rubbish like that. Or the other one, if you step on the crack, if you step on the crack on the pavement, it's bad luck. So you've got people out there walking around, avoiding cracks in pavements, or people who won't walk under the ladder. You know, you walk under that ladder and the spiritual forces of the world are going to come down on you and you're going to have a bad day. But you ask these people, do they believe in God? And they say no. So where's this, special superstitious force? But people believe in superstitions, especially a lot of Edomites. They cover the whole range of idiotic disbeliefs. But so like I say, Zephaniah is talking of the day of the Lord. And like I say, that when it explains there, or punish those that leap on the threshold, which fill their masters' houses with violence and deceit. This is regarding, idolization and worship in the day of Zephaniah, mainly around Ashdod. And obviously we are witnessing that, in a different form today. Don't forget, everybody on the planet is reborn through their family, through their father's bloodline. And our spirits are regenerated back into new bodies. So we're pretty much the same people that have been here before, following the same philosophies and, latching onto the same deceitful spirits. Apostle Tahar recently mentioned temple prostitutes and Bel Peor, and he mentioned the fact that, that these temple prostitutes will want you to have sex with them in the name of their God. And that was something that took place in ancient times. And that same spirit is back here, latching back onto people today. And what you'll notice with a lot of westernized women is, you'll have sex with them, and at that moment of climax, what do? They scream for Jesus or for God. And how is that? How is it that you are about to bust a nut? You're having sex, and you've managed to get turned on sexually, and you've gone through this process, this animalistic event, and now you're about to bust a nut, and the first thing that comes out of your mouth is Jesus or oh God. And this is what happens, you especially with westernized women. It's that same spirit of Bel Peor, and latches back on to people in today's society, and yet they don't realize it, and obviously maybe they don't understand what it is, and they don't address it in the same manner. But this is what it is. The spirit latches onto people, and they take action without even realizing what they're doing or why they're doing it. And we're here to break it down for you. So you can clearly see that the day of the Lord will, it says here, for the day of the Lord is at hand, for the Lord hath prepared a sacrifice. And so that's what's happening. The day of the Lord is coming. We're going to have World War III, the destruction, and then we're going to have a day in which the Son of the Most High will return. During that period of World War III, during that period of destruction known as World War III. And so at the moment, Yahushua appears, and this will be known as the Day of the Lord. And within an hour, Babylon the Great, America, will be destroyed by fire, by a nuclear ICBM fire. And it will be utterly burnt to the ground, and it will be left smoking. And that will be the sacrifice taking place, as it's described here. So when you jump over to Jeremiah chapter 46 and 20, it says Egypt, which is another code word for America. Don't forget, the land of Egypt was once a land of bondage for the children of Israel, and America is the current day land of bondage for the children of Israel. And the word Egypt goes back to the word bondage, and that's what it is. That's what it's describing. That's why it's used as code word. The children of Israel have been through many types of different bondages. And so when it's talking about, for example, the current day bondage that we're in America, Babylon the Great, the majority of the children of Israel And the code word used in the Bible, because sometimes you'll find the word Egypt as well as many others. It says Egypt is like a very fair heifer, but destruction cometh. It cometh out of the north. So that fair heifer is that is that is that is that sacrifice. Been grazing in the grass, and it's pretty much been fed well and taken care of, and it's unblemished. So now it's going to be used. Egypt is like a very fair heifer, but destruction cometh. It cometh out of the north. It's going to be used as a sacrificial animal. It says also her hired men are in the midst of her like fatted bullocks, for they also are turned back and are fled away together. They did not stand, because the day of their calamity was come upon them, and the time of their visitation. So that's what's happening. We're going to have visitation from Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, and calamity will come upon Egypt, America, which is what known as that very fair heifer, ready for sacrifice, as spoken of in Zephaniah. Jeremiah 49:7 says, concerning Edom, thus saith the Lord of hosts, is wisdom no more in Teman? Is counsel perished from the prudent? Is their wisdom vanished? Flee ye, turn back, dwell deep, O inhabitants of Dedan, for I will bring the calamity of Esau upon him, the time that I will visit him. So you can now see a pattern developing, with the visitation of the Most High, Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. We're in that time now where he's visiting these nations, and he's causing calamities, and that's something that goes hand in hand. He's causing calamities upon these other nations, and this is all going to build, and it's going to build and build into a period called Jacob's trouble, into a period called World War III, into the day of the Lord, which is known as the day of calamity. And this is carrying on with Jeremiah 49:9. It says, if grape gatherers come to thee, would they not leave some gleaning grapes? If thieves by night, they will destroy till they have enough. But I have made Esau bare, I have uncovered his secret places, and he shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren, and his neighbors, and he is not. So Esau has been made bare, his secret places are being uncovered. This is part of the calamity that's happening during the visitation of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. We're in that time now, and it's going to keep building up until the day of the Lord. The day of the Lord is the time at which America, that fair heifer, is used as that sacrificial animal and burnt up utterly with fire. So anybody on the land of America on the day of the Lord, apart from the members of the elect, will be burnt up within that fire, and there will be no survivors. Remember, scriptures say America will be destroyed and utterly burnt within 1 hour. So that's one hell of a destruction that has to hit that. So thinking you're going to survive, and maybe holding out in the outskirts of the woods or the forest somewhere, you've got a very, 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 very slim chance. So looking at that situation, and then we're looking at the problems that are occurring for Esau. Like I say, these Edomites, there are two parts. This is 2nd Ezra chapter 15. So there are two situations that are going on at the minute, two massive things that are going on around the world. We're looking out for the MOTB, the implementation of digital currency based around the CBDC, and that's known as the MOTB. We're also looking at World War III, and we know that's around the corner, especially with the events that are happening with Iran. So there are two things going on. You see, one thing is the financial situation. Now, if the banking elites who have influence over, 1998, 92, 99, whatever it is, they have influence over the majority of the world's currency. And so they can work together with certain other nations to manipulate this change, this great reset, and take us into this digitalization, which is what we're seeing now. A country like Iran may not want to play ball on that level. However, they're going to have to eventually, because if the rest of the world switches to digital currency, you can't buy or sell. You automatically have to switch with that. So that's one thing that's going on. We're looking out for this planned collapse, this self-destruction of the financial system which the banking elites are bringing about. We're also looking at World War III. Now that's more based around the political system of the world and each individual nation having their own particular views and then being instructed by America, Babylon the Great, as to what to follow. So a lot of these nations are taking on that democratic system from America and they're running with it. Some of them take on, the certain customs and laws and ideologies. Some of them don't. For example, the alphabet people is one of those things that they will tell you to push. A country like England, for example, has taken it on board, embraced it, and their government pushes it. Certain African countries don't want to take that on board and don't want to push it. So this is a political situation that's going on. And like I keep mentioning, Iran are at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to the list, for democratic systems in amongst this geopolitical scene. So you've got a problem, like I keep mentioning, with the fact that they have a problem with the lifestyles of the little hats and America. So even if they were to play ball on the financial system, if everything was to switch to digital tomorrow, they'd have to switch to digital currency and they'd have to play ball. But it doesn't mean that they want to play ball on a geopolitical scene. They don't want to embrace democracy. You now have Israel trying to push democracy by using force to go in and violently attack Iran. And the own people of that nation, the small hats, are standing up against the government, saying, I thought you're supposed to be a democratic system. So this is a calamity which is happening within itself. This Edomite system, it's always worked like this. And they've always, imposed democracy using armies. And now it's becoming a big problem. So when you look at 2nd Ezra chapter 15, for example, it talks about sedition amongst men. And that's something that's happening at the minute. But ultimately, this particular chapter is talking about Jacob's trouble, is talking about when the financial system creates a problem for the people of the nations. See, there's a lot of rioting going on at the minute, for example, in Israel and in France. But when it hits places like America and the UK, that's when you have a massive problem. That's when the peak of the democratic system is under pressure and it's seen to be struggling. When they, bring about this planned collapse of the financial system, that will take money from being worth something one day to you waking up the next day and being worth nothing. That's when people will lose the plot. Okay, so if I'm working hard today and I'm stacking P, I've got 30 grand saved in my bank and I'm looking to buy a house and blah, 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 and I've worked the last how many years to get it there, and all of a sudden I wake up tomorrow and the financial system has crashed, they say your 30 grand doesn't exist. We now have a digital system. We now have a credit score system. You're going to be fuming. And even if you've got that 30 grand, they might not change that instantly. They might keep your money as 30 grand with a digital system, but not allow you to access it without taking on the digital ID, which will be ultimately that chip in your hand. They'll start off by saying cashless. They're going to start off by making things cashless, but you can still use your credit card and your iPhone. Then they're going to remove the credit cards. Then you're left with the iPhone, and then you move you on to the chip. So you've got that type of calamity which is going to come upon people around the world when they wake up one day and whatever was in their bank account is worth nothing. People are going to pulling their hair out. Nobody's going to want to go to work, and everybody's going to be angry and wanting answers. So that's when you're going to see, for example, here 2nd Ezra chapter 15 and 14, woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, And one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. For there shall be sedition amongst men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. A man shall desire to go into a city, and shall not be able, because there'll be, especially in America, will definitely have martial law. And for because of their pride, the cities shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword, and spoil their goods, because of the lack of bread, and for great tribulation. So this is centered around that monetary change during the time of Jacob's trouble, which is the implementation of Revelation 13 and 16, the MOTB. But where it says, for there shall be sedition amongst men, and this is starting to happen now, and we're having people that are speaking up against the governments and speaking up against the powers that be, the authorities. That's what sedition is. When you look up the word sedition, it's pretty much speaking up against the political powers. Now, we've always had that. For example, on YouTube, you have many people that come out and speak against the governments, and they call it a free speech and debate. But you're going to see that in an aggressive manner. And like I say, when that hits America and the UK, due to the financial situation, and that's when we're going to be in the midst of Jacob's trouble. But at the minute, we're seeing it based around a political stance, and it's causing calamity for these Edomites, for Esau. Normally they have time to put propaganda into place and to slowly gradualize and convince the nation that they need to go to war against an enemy for the sake of democracy. But with the situation with Iran, they don't have that much time. So they have to work quickly. And the people are standing up, as you're seeing here. You're going to see in this particular news article, people are standing up and they're causing uproar. And looking at it myself and trying to apply it to the scriptures, the phrase calamity came to mind. And when you go to Proverbs chapter 1 and 26, it says, and I will laugh at your calamity, I will mock when your fear cometh. When your fear cometh as desolation, and your destruction cometh as a whirlwind, when distress and anguish cometh upon you. This is Psalms 57 and 1. And this is, be merciful unto me, O Most High. This is David. Be merciful unto me, for my soul trusteth in thee. Yea, in the shadow of thy wings I will make my refuge until these calamities overpass. And that's what we're seeing. We're starting to see the build-up of calamities for these various nations and governments around the world, and it's going to keep building and building until we hit Jacob's trouble. And when the financial change comes about, that's when the calamities will triple, quadruple, will escalate. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking to be kept out of the way and kept safe until all this passes by, and Yahushua returns to deliver the hopeful elect and take him out of here just before that sacrifice of America. So in Proverbs 6 and 13 says, he winketh with his eyes, he speaketh with his feet, he teaches with his fingers. Frowardness is in his heart, he deviseth mischief continually, he soweth discord. This is Edomites, especially these banking elites and with their think tanks. It says, therefore shall his calamity come suddenly. Suddenly shall he be broken without remedy. Okay, so I kind of focusing on that word calamity. And when you look at the definition, when you look at where it's come from, we have the word ade, and the definition, the biblical definition, outline of biblical usage: distress, burden, calamity, burden of the righteous, calamity of a nation, disaster of wicked, day of calamity. So when we look here, at the minute we're looking at this nation, the small hats, and we're looking at their situation with Iran, and we know they've got a big problem, and we know according to scriptures they have to react to Iran, and so we're waiting on that. And meanwhile, they're getting pushback from their own people. and their own people don't really realize how detrimental the situation is to their long-term being. You see, those people are protesting. Why do you have to be so left-wing and aggressive against your enemies? But if this small hat government don't react to Iran very soon, then it's going to be curtains for the whole nation, and none of those people are going to be alive. So the government are kind of doing them a favor by saying, look, we're going to have to go there in the name of democracy and cause them a problem. But the people ain't getting it. And like I say, it's through the lies and the confusion that they have been fed throughout the history to get them here. Now, so we're looking at them and they're having calamity, a calamity of a nation. And we look up the word calamity, an event cause. And we look up the word calamity and it says an event causing great and often sudden damage or distress, a disaster. And we have similar words here for calamity. So these come all under the umbrella of the word calamity. And we can see at the bottom, for example, the opposite of a calamity is a godsend or a blessing. Now, calamities come in many forms. So when you click on one of these similar words, you get different types of calamities, but they all come under the umbrella of calamity. And we can see the word here, cataclysm. Now, the word calamity comes from the calamitas Latin word. And like I say, out of that word, you have the word cataclysm. Cataclysm. And it says here, a sudden, violent, political or social upheaval. So that's what we're seeing with the small hats at the minute. We're seeing a calamity brought on by the Lord. And this type of calamity is a cataclysm, a sudden, violent, political or social upheaval. And when you look up the word cataclysm here, it says a large scale and violent event in the natural world, or a sudden, violent, political or social upheaval. And when you look at the origins of the word, if you look down below, the origin of the word cataclysm, you have Kata-Kluzein, down to wash. It's a Greek word, and we look at the bottom now, and it says early 17th century, originally denoting to the biblical flood described in Genesis. There's the French cataclysme via Latin from Greek kataklumos, deluge, from kata, down, and kluzein, to wash. So cataclysm is a sudden political, social upheaval, and it's a washdown. That's what the word goes back to. It's a washdown. And that's what you're seeing. You're seeing the political structure and the ideas that they're getting used being exposed and falling upon themselves. So these Edomites are in this calamity, and they're getting this washdown in terms of, everything is being aired in public, and it's, for a long time, these Edomites have gone about their business in the same way. They set out propaganda and they have their eye on a particular target, and they create a fake reason, if you like, to go in and use military force, and they've been able to get away with it. But you see now, people are starting to share information, and they're starting to stand up against it. What you've got to realize with the lies that they've pushed to the people, they've made people believe that you have this free choice and this free will, and they've empowered them with it over these years. Now they're starting to speak in a more draconian fashion to their people. It's starting to bite them back, because people are thinking, hang on a minute, I thought this is a so-called free country, these type of phrases. And so what it is, you see the whole idea of democracy is pretty much being aired out in public, and everybody gets to see that it's a total load of nonsense if your eyes are open. There are a lot of people in this world whose eyes aren't open, and they will not have a clue of what I'm talking about at this particular minute. But we know that democracy is not the way forward. We know that democracy is not a system political system that will bring a a righteous and fruitful life. And yet, people of this world believe that is the pinnacle of life, is to have a democratic system. So what the Lord's doing is we're the ones that are witnessing it, and we're seeing that it's pretty much getting aired out. Like I say, washed out. It's getting washed through. All the bullshit is getting taken out of it. I don't know if I'm describing it in the right manner. Let me put it to you like this. If you're dirty, you're full of lies, and I, approach you on that, and I say, look, you're dirty, you're full of lies. And you say, no, 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 I'm clean, I'm clean. If I then hose you down with water and I wash you down, I'll look at the water down below on your feet and I say, I can see the dirt coming off you. So it's exposed. You can't hide it. A lot of men, they probably go out on dates and they go out with women, and the women have got loads of makeup on. And personally, I never chose a woman with, a lot of makeup at all. If you get some women that cake it on, and what happens to these men? These men take the women home, and in the morning they wash their face, they wash it down, and they get a fright. They go, "Oh damn, is that what you really look like? You didn't look like that last night." Yeah, because I covered up. I lied. I made my face look like something else, and I covered it up, and you couldn't tell. But we're in that time where you get the wash down, where your face gets washed down, and we get to see you without that makeup. You're naked, you're uncovered, and that's what's happening to these Edomites, especially with this democratic system. It's getting exposed. Oh, so to uphold your democratic system, actually you have to use tanks and violence and force. Well, it's not really democratic then, is it? So, it's we're seeing it for what it really is. You've had that wash down, and that's part of the process. You had the flood, which came along, in the times of Noah, and the flood came out and washed everything, washed the earth, cleansed it, and it drowned all the wickedness. And when the waters receded, it was a chance for the earth to start again, and Noah started again. So that's the washdown, and the washdowns come in here with this Edomite kingdom. First of all, it's falling apart bit by bit. It's like it's almost getting diluted. It's like it's flooding them with their own agendas and their own issues, and people are standing up against it. So what it's doing is causing problems within it, and so slowly it's weakening and it's weakening, and it's going to get to the point where this World War III starts. And like I say, the most of the world will be happy to go along with America when it comes to the financial change, but with the political stance, that's what's going to cause these other nations to go against America in terms of World War III. And at the minute, before, and that when that World War III takes place, the destruction of America takes place, you're having the sacrifice takes place. Now, when we go to Leviticus 1 and 6, and then shall flay the burnt offering and cut it into his pieces. And the sons of Aaron, the priest, shall put fire upon the altar and lay wood in order upon the fire. So this is all regarding offering up burnt offering to the Most High. It says, and the priests, Aaron's sons, shall lay the parts, the head, and the fat in order upon the wood that is on the fire, which is upon the altar. But his inwards and his legs shall be washed in water, and the priest shall burn all on the altar, and be a burnt sacrifice, an offering made by fire of a sweet savour unto the Most High, Yahweh. So, just to get that for you in easier to understand language, Leviticus 1 and 9 in the NLT says, but the internal organs and the legs must first be washed with water. Then the priest will burn the entire sacrifice on the altar as a burnt offering. It's a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. So these Edomites, and especially America, they're going to be that burnt offering, that sacrifice. And before you light it up. What have you got to do? You got to wash them down. And that's part of the calamities, part of the cataclysm of the calamity that is happening upon Esau and especially America. And it's also going to happen with these Edomite, these small hats. Like I say, all Edomites around the world. When it comes to calamities, you're all going to receive them. When it comes to the cataclysm of calamities, you're all going to receive that, because all your political structures are going to seem to be weak. We're living in the time of the 10 toes, part iron and part clay. The statue seen by Daniel. So there's going to be great. We're seeing it. We're seeing it already. A lot of nations can't get on in terms of this and that on a political level. Yes, they will all hold hands when it comes to this digital switchover financially. But there are many calamities that are going out upon all these Edomites, and ultimately the calamities that hit America. This is all part of that washdown. Before the sacrifice gets burnt up, set on fire. So I hope that was edifying, and I'll leave it right there. Until next time, I'm going to say all praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rakat, Quadash. Until next time, Shalom.